Good morning, everybody. Mark Finan here in the home weather office on this Friday morning. Yep, it's Friday. It's now the 5th day of December 2025, and this is the morning briefing. Well, from the home weather office this morning, we got about the thickest fog that we have seen here at the home weather office since this episode of fog started. For a reminder, again, my elevation here is around 700, maybe 720 feet, something like that. Depends on which end of the driveway you're on. But yeah, I'd say that visibility is less than a quarter of a mile. It's not all that good. And there are many spots like that on the west slope. And yesterday, we saw in many areas, not all, but in many areas, the fog deck in the valley burned off. It's a pattern we're going to see over the next couple of days, is that we'll see this thick fog in the morning. By the early to mid-afternoon, it will begin to erode a little bit. But that doesn't mean it's going to be warming up. Many areas from the lower foothills and into the valley will stay in a range of temperatures maybe from 45 to 50, maybe 52 at most, probably over the next few days. So yes, even if the sun comes out, it doesn't mean it's going to be warming up all that much. Let's take a look at some of the other cameras in the area. This is from the Z Realty Group. They do a nice job of setting up some webcams on the west slope here. And this is Cameron Park. That is the Cameron Park Airport, the runway right here, Cameron Park International. Kind of socked in with fog. So this is around 1,200 feet. Let's go up to Placerville and Main Street. Placerville, we have sunshine. And we go up to Pollock Pines, and as you can see, nothing but crystal clear blue sky. And then here's the way it looks from above. The sun just barely getting up onto on the satellite. Don't keep zooming in on me. So here is the footprint of the fog. Once again, rather familiar. And the areas I just showed you are right here on the edges of it. And it's on the edges of it where you have the thickest fog, the lowest visibility, as I just showed you from those cameras. You break out above that. It's really interesting. Let's say you were driving up Highway 50. Once you get past Cameron Park up towards Shingle Springs, all of a sudden you'd go from this very thick fog and break out into sunshine. Now, conversely, if you were coming down Interstate 80, let's say, you could find yourself going from brilliant blue sky into an area with very low visibility in a hurry. And that catches people off guard sometimes. So in that area of transition, do keep in mind that let's say you're traveling on Interstate 80 and you're going the speed limit or higher, as some do, that pretty soon you might not be able to travel 40. And that's when you get into problems with traffic and accidents and that sort of thing. When you get that quick transition to low visibility, people put on their brakes in a hurry. So yeah, this is likely going to stick around, and this really does a number on our temperatures. So look at what has happened at Executive Airport here. 51, 51, 62, because we had that north wind to clear things out on Wednesday, but then yesterday we were right back at it. 50 for a high after an overnight low of 37. And this morning is a little bit warmer, if you want to call it that, low 40s. But the afternoon temperature probably won't be much more than 50 to 52 again, even with the sun breaking out. So yeah, and again, as I've been talking about, apps have a really tough time with this sort of a thing. And the models will probably spit out something 55 to 58, maybe even 60, but we're not going to see 60 for a while in the valley. The other thing you'll note, of course, is that in this pattern, it's dry. So far, it'll be going on 5 days without rain. Let's take a look at the month of November. You have to go back to the 20th of November before you find any rain. And so now we're pushing 2 weeks since we have had measurable rain. But that is rather typical during the course of the season. We get wet periods. I mean, look at that. We had half an inch, and then we had an inch and a half, then a quarter of an inch, then an inch. So this was a nice active period during the month of November, but it's rather typical for us to have dry spots throughout the season. This is the 8-station index. I haven't shown you this in a while, so let's just refresh what this is. So this is an index that the Department of Water Resources does. And so what they do is they take 8 locations going from Mount Shasta City, down through Quincy and Blue Canyon and Pacifica. So it's basically from Highway 50, taking in precipitation from the American River up through the Feather River and Yuba River and up toward the upper Sacramento River. And they make an index and they track it throughout the year. This blue line here is the long-term normalized average, 1991 to 2020 average. And by the end of the year, it's 53.2. And then here's the scale down here, or the timeline down here. And so here we are, and there is our dry period. So every time it goes up is when we've had rain, and then, of course, it dries out. So right now, according to the 8-station index, we're pretty close to average. And if you look at, let's say last year, 24-25, that's this line here. Look at this, nice wet period, dry period. Nice wet period, dry period. Nice wet period, dry period. And so that's the way years go. And you see this line, this brown line, this 82, 83, but that is a normalized line. You see the data points are spread out here. So that wasn't a continuous line. And then even in 2016-17, the wettest year that we have had, there are dry periods in here. So it isn't unusual. I mean, even look at that year. We get off to a wet start with that October, and then all of a sudden, poof, dry. And, I'm sure everybody was complaining that, it hasn't rained, hasn't snowed yet. And then we were off to the races getting tons and tons of rain and snow. So, when you are looking at the season, keep in mind where we are. I have heard from a few of you in the comments section saying, La Nina this. Remember, La Nina means nothing for us. Drought, no, this isn't drought. We're just early in the season. And yeah, before you know it, we'll probably get another line like this, and this 8-station index will go straight up. So we'll talk more about that going forward. Let's talk a little shorter term and talk about the fog deck and what's going to happen here. No, I don't want to do that. So here is the fog this morning, and the model does show that by the late afternoon, it breaks up a little bit, and then it reforms again quickly overnight. So tomorrow morning will look just about like today. That is Saturday morning. Saturday afternoon, it breaks up, some high, thin clouds going over the top, and then the fog returns with the Sutter Buttes peeking out here. I just don't see this pattern changing. So let's take a look at the 500 millibar chart. So right now we have enough of this north flow aloft. It doesn't really translate down to the surface, but above 5,000 feet, I think that's helping to clear the fog in the afternoons. But as we head into, this is Sunday, now Monday, I wouldn't be surprised if the fog starts to set up and stick around a little bit longer again next week, because we lose a lot of that north flow here. It's more westerly and northwesterly. And you see ridging. There are some systems coming in here. This is all the way to next weekend. Something going by to the north, then the ridge rebuilds. We're likely back into more fog. Nice system out in here. Now keep in mind, this, we're out into the land of unpredictability, but the models go out here anyway. But if we go to let's go to the GFS. And the GFS, of course, isn't going to resolve those cloud layers. But what we can do is look at precip. And let's go back to the 6Z run, because that will go well out in time. And this is Monday, we're dry. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. So we're, more than a week out, and we just don't see anything happening here. Yeah, maybe something here, but that's the 18th. I mean, we're talking way out. We're talking, 2 weeks out. And so, as I've been saying over the last couple of days, what do we know and what don't we know? We know it's going to be dry through the weekend. We know it's going to be dry probably all of next week. And we will likely see more of this fog develop. It'll vary each day. The visibility in any one location will vary each day. And even if the fog burns off and we get afternoon sun, temperatures just will not be warming up all that much. Expect more of this cool weather, temperatures in the 40s, maybe low 50s at best, because I don't see a return of any of that surface north wind that we saw on Wednesday that gave us that high in the 60s. So if your app or whatever weather source you say says that 5 days from now it's going to be sunny and 60 degrees, I would really doubt that. The old saying is that in a case like this, persistence is your friend. And I just don't see anything that is going to change this pattern anytime soon. All right, a reminder that tonight's the night. I'll be in Sutter Creek from 5 to 8 p.m. at Artfully Rooted on Main Street in Sutter Creek. Stop by and say hello. It's going to be a really fun evening. I'll have my photography there. We can talk about photography. We can talk about weather. Stop by and say hello. That's everything I have for you on this Friday morning. Make it a great day. I'll talk with you later.